There has been a nuclear accident in the Soviet Union, and the Soviets have admitted that it happened. The Soviet version is this. One of the atomic reactors at the Chernobyl atomic power plant near the city of Kiev was damaged, and there is speculation in Moscow that people were injured and may have died.
In 1986, the world witnessed one of the worst nuclear disasters in history. The explosion at Chernobyl power plant sent the radioactive material into the air, contaminating thousands of square miles, and caused more than 3 million cases of cancer. A lot of the victims suffered from radiation disease and had to undergo rehabilitation. But medical doctors eventually noticed that in one location, victims seemed to have excellent recovery results compared to victims from other centers. After the work of Dr. Igor Smirnov, they found the significant factor in their recovery.
I graduated from St. Petersburg Naval Academy in 1975, Faculty of Nuclear Reactors, and got my MS in Mechanical Engineering. And then in 1986, I graduated from St. Petersburg University, Faculty of Psychology. So basically, in 1986, we know that there was a Chernobyl fallout, the nuclear power plant accident, and as a result of this accident, there was some interesting findings regarding the effect of natural mineral spring water for the rehabilitation process of patients suffering from radiation disease. So based on this discovery by medical doctors, we decided to do some type of investigation to find out how actually water can affect the rehabilitation of the patient suffering from this severe problem. Initially, because, these samples of this water from the source, from the Caucasus mountain in south part of Russia, it was distributed, but in different number of the universities. Just to, the government was trying to find out how actually it can work and what is the reason this water can actually produce so profound, healthy effect. We got this sample of this water at laboratory at St. Petersburg University, and initially most of the scientific team, they believed it probably because of some kind of like exotic, mineral compound or chemical compound. But after the research regarding the chemical compound of this spring water, we didn't find anything interesting, nothing exotic, which which we can consider as the main component which can produce so beneficial rehabilitation effect. So then it came to my mind that probably it's not because of the chemistry of water, but of the physics of water. And there is, quite different, significant difference between the chemical reaction in water and the physics of water, because mostly the chemical reaction depend on the covalent bonds of the water molecules. Otherwise, the physical property of water is mainly depends on the hydrogen bonding of water molecules. So it's completely different story. And after, doing experiment with this sample of water, like using like nuclear magnetic resonance test, some type of laser spectroscopy, infrared spectroscopy, we actually found, yes, this water has a quite different energy level. So let's say energy level of water molecular activity. And it was the first step to understand this, effect of, physiological effect of this mineral spring water. So then it took me probably another 5 to 6 years to find a way how to recreate this type of water at in laboratory environment. And the main concept was based on the creation of the polymer compound, which incorporate different type of chemicals, mineral components, and combine so-called fractal geometry chemical compound, which has a specific fractal geometry. In other words, it has a specific molecular orientation of the polymer compound. And when you actually exposed this polymer compound, a composite polymer compound, to the external electromagnetic field and magnetic field, it's actually create the excitation process in the molecular structure of the polymer compound. Because based on the electronic microscopy, we found that this specific composite material, polymer composite material, has so-called nanoring structure. In other words, it has a very complex structure, molecular structure. And when this compound is exposed to external magnetic or electromagnetic field, this compound generates its own low intensity electromagnetic signals. And these electromagnetic signals quite close resemble to the natural geomagnetic field. So, because the main difference is in the structure, in the topology of electromagnetic field. So, in other words, natural geomagnetic field, it's very unstable. It doesn't have the stable amplitude, like most of the electromagnetic field generated by the gadgets and equipments designed by the man-made electromagnetic field, let's say. And this is the main difference, because most of the signals generated by the man-made equipment and gadgets, they have a stable amplitude, whereas most of the natural electromagnetic field, they have unstable amplitude. And this is the main principle. When this electromagnetic field generated by the composite material, which I named molecular resonance effect technology, MRET abbreviation. So when you expose this electromagnetic generated by electromagnetic field generated by the polymer, MRET polymer material, to the body of the water, it has a profound effect on molecular structure of water. So in other words, it's modified molecular structure of water. And obviously we did a number of the physical testing and biological testing of MRET treated water. And this testing was conducted in a number of universities all over the globe. We did test in United States, we did testing in Canada, we did testing in Singapore, we did a number of testing in Malaysia, Thailand, and of course Russia, and currently in China. So based on this research, which was conducted probably within the last 20 years, we came to conclusion that this MRET technology has a very profound effect on molecular structure of water, and MRET treated water can be used for medical purposes. First of all, we conducted tests just to find out that after MRET treatment, water has different molecular orientation, different molecular structure. We conducted tests in Moscow State University, and we found that after MRET treatment, MRET water has a significant reduction of viscosity, dynamic viscosity, almost 300 to 500 times lower viscosity compared with original control sample, which is very interesting result because you know that human body is mostly water. It's about 70% water on average basis. And we actually are a water machine. So if a human body consumes a good natural water, it can function properly. And it's actually the immune system boost, because when you consume natural, good, healthy water, it's boost immune system, it support immune system, and it support the homeostasis of human body in general. So low viscosity of the MRET water possess so-called superliquidity, which means that this water can penetrate any cellular membrane, and it can help cells to get the nutrients and then withdraw the waste material from the cells very fast. In 1993, two American scientists, they got Nobel Prize for discovery of so-called aquaporine. So in other words, they discovered that actually living cells, they have a special channels, aquaporine channels, so for absorption of water molecules. And actually what they discovered that aquaporine channels, they allow water molecules go only one by one inside the cells. So in other words, in order for the better hydration of the human body and better absorption of water molecules by the cells, living cells, the water requires to be modified and formed in a long linear structure to go easy through the aquaporine channels with the almost speed of light inside the cells. And this was very interesting discovery, and as I said, it was awarded with the Nobel Prize. But it's actually give us the indication that MRET treated water and most of the natural spring water, they have a specific water molecular orientation, water molecular structure, which quite close resemble to the natural intracellular water. So in other words, polarized oriented long linear molecular structure. This is the main concept basis for the life actually. So the low viscosity of MRET water actually give indication that this water has resembled this long linear molecular structure. Another interesting discovery was we found out that after MRET treatment there is actually modification of dielectrical property of water and electrical conductivity of water. This is a physical parameters of water. In other words, after MRET treatment, we have a completely different water molecular structure with different physical properties. Then we conducted a number of biological tests in vivo and in vitro. For example, there was interesting result when we did experiment regarding the effect of MRET treated water on different form of cancer in animal models. So we conducted this test for two different type of cancer, like early carcinoma and sarcoma in mice. And this test actually indicated that MRET water has a profound effect on reduction of the tumors in animals, on reduction of the viable cancer cells in animals, increase of the lifespan in animals, and in general improvement of the health condition of animals. So, for example, the animals which were on the MRET water, consumption of MRET water, their lifespan increased by 40 to 60% compared with animals in control group. And the decrease of the tumors was up to 1.5 to 2.4 times compared with animals. So, which is very interesting result, considering that we're talking just about pure water. There is no chemicals, nothing introduced to this water. And then we conducted this test in vitro in LCDX Biotechnology Corporation in San Diego. The test was conducted on the standard halotype line of cancer cells. And again, after introduction of the cancer cells to the MRET-treated water environment, there was a significant reduction of life activity of cancer cells. And at the same facility at LCDX laboratory, we actually conducted tests regarding the effect of MRET-treated water on normal cells, human normal cells. And what it was interesting that there was no any effect on normal cells. In other words, we have a water material which can reduce life activity and suppress life activity of cancer cells, and on the same hand, at the same time, it doesn't produce any significant effect on the normal cells. In other words, it doesn't suppress life activity of normal cells. This is very good, interesting result, because we know that most of the medicine which is used for chemotherapy, for example, treatment, unfortunately, it has only one strict and damaging effect, both on the cancer cells and normal cells. And this is the main, unfortunately, it's the main negative effect of chemotherapy, which leads mostly to the inability of the patient to conduct a normal treatment, because most of the patients, they're suffering from side effects of the chemotherapy. Okay, another experiment was conducted regarding the effect of MRET water on different type of harmful microorganisms. For example, we conducted experiment in vitro and in vivo in animal models regarding the effect of MRET treatment on mice inoculated with the staphylococcus. Staph is very common, harmful microorganisms. And even nowadays, it's a very serious problem, even at the, well-established hospitals, for example, in United States, regarding the staph infection for the patient. For example, like after operation, after surgery, etc. And this test was conducted both in animal models and direct effect of MRET-treated media to the staphylococcus harmful microorganisms. In both cases, we found that MRET water actually suppress the harmful effect of staphylococcus. So, for example, we found in animal models that in control group, there was almost 30% of deaths for the animals infected with staphylococcus. On the other hand, in the group of animals which were treated with MRET water, there was no lethal case, no death. So it's very good result. And also, when we did this experiment in vitro, we found a significant suppression of the staff life activity after MRET treatment. So that's an interesting result. Also, another interesting experiment was conducted in Thailand, in Bangkok hospital by Dr. Pierrot, who was at this time director of the HIV control for Bangkok area. And he did experiment regarding the effect of MRET water, consumption of MRET water by HIV patient. So test was conducted on the group of 38 patients. They were consumed MRET water on a regular daily basis, about 1 liter of MRET water, together with standard antiretroviral medication. And in this hospital, there was about 10,000 patients at this time. And obviously, we have more than enough control group, because most of the other patients, they were consuming just regular antiretroviral medication, and they were consuming just regular water, just like regular, because most of the humans, they have to consume water, anyway, on regular basis. So what Dr. Pierrot found that after consumption of MRET water by this group, there was a significant improvement of the patient consuming MRET water. One of the indications was so-called CD4 test, which is usually conducted by patients suffering from HIV. It actually shows the so-called white blood cells counting. And that immune system is based mostly on the activity of white blood cells in the human body. So what they found after 2 or 3 months consumption of MRET water, that for patient consuming MRET water, there was a significant increase of CD4 result. On a regular basis, when people are suffering from HIV, their regular CD4 rate is almost zero, close to zero, maybe 2.5. And after 2-3 months of consumption of MRET water, together with a regular medication, there was increase of CD4 up to 800. For normal people, usually the CD4 rate is about 1200. So, in other words, it was almost close to normal level of the CD4 level. And after this, Dr. Pierrot had been observing this patient for another 6 months. It was very much stable level of CD4. And on the contrary, another test for the viral content, it showed that patient consuming MRET water, they have their viral content lower than 50, which is very good. It's usually normal rate for the normal people not suffering from any type of HIV problem. So it's another good, interesting result we found regarding the effect of MRET water on patients suffering from a very serious HIV problem. Okay, so that's basically regarding the biological experiment. We also conducted tests regarding the effect of MRET water on some other form of harmful bacteria like E. coli, for example, or Listeria. Another test was conducted by the food laboratory, LAPEC Food Laboratory in Boston. They also found that when you introduce food samples, for example, like fish, or a piece, or a sample of the chicken meat, when you introduce this water, spray this water, these samples with MRET water, within 5 minutes, it dramatically reduces number of the harmful bacteria like coliform bacteria, almost, reduced to the zero. Whereas on the normal sample of like when you spray the samples with tap water or for controlled sample, it's there is no reduction of the harmful bacteria colony at all. So it's very good antiseptic, natural antiseptic. Well, that's what I can give some idea regarding the effect of MRET water on human physiology and on the effect on the different form of bacteria in general. So why it's interesting findings? Because when we actually face this situation with the SARS COVID in 2019 and within these 2 years, actually based on the different information which now we are receiving from different sources, medical source, for example, in United States, in Europe, and from some other universities all over the globe. Actually, we came to conclusion that SARS was actually a laboratory-produced virus. In other words, it was developed artificially. And based on the research conducted, for example, one of the laboratory in the United States, they came to conclusion that it's a combination of flu virus and HIV virus. So that's why it's so, it can affect human in a very, profound way, very fast spread of this virus, and very difficult, to fight this virus. So, considering that MRET water, we have indication that MRET water can suppress life activity of an HIV virus. We already have this, clinical trial in Thailand. So I'm pretty sure that the introduction of MRET water to patients suffering from SARS, maybe it's another good tool, to fight this problem. Because see, the recent discovery regarding the SARS virus, we know that basically how the SARS virus penetrate the human cells, healthy human cells. It's supposed to develop so-called spikes. These spikes, it's actually built by virus out of the protein molecules. And in order for the protein molecules to be oriented, and in order for the virus to create these spikes, it has to have a special environment condition. Most of the biological reaction, it goes in the water environment. It's water all around in the human body. So for the SARS virus to build the spikes and then through the spikes to penetrate inside the cellular membrane, it requires a special environment. And water environment very much depend on dielectrical property of water. In other words, for the virus, it requires a special dielectrical property of water environment to enhance activity, to build spike, and to break the membrane, cellular membrane, and go inside the cells. So if we manage to consume water with modified dielectrical property like MRET water, and if this water can replace the water inside the human body, for example, patients suffering from SARS, we change the dielectrical property of water environment. And it's actually reduced the dielectrical property of water inside the human body. And based on this hypothesis, it's very easy to consider that in this case, virus had no chance to build this spike. If virus had no chance to build this spike, virus cannot get inside the cells and cannot hide from the immune system of the human body. In other words, if the virus cannot penetrate the cells, it can be easily, killed by macrophages and all other, white blood cells components. So that's just a hypothesis, but, it has kind of like scientific background. Well, it's very specific because what actually allows natural water to be modified, their molecular structure in the natural springs. It's mostly a specific intensity of Earth magnetic field in this area, geomagnetic field, so-called geomagnetic field. Another component is obviously some type of minerals component, and another pressure, because the water well is sitting deeply inside the ground, especially in the mountains. It's very deep, sometimes hundreds of meters, in some cases maybe even kilometers inside the ground. And this pressure and combination of the pressure, mineral content, and magnetic field, geomagnetic field, it creates this type of specific water. It's very rare location. For example, that's why even in the 18th century, 19th century, in Europe, it was very popular to go to the spring water. Like, for example, in Carlsbad in Germany, now it's Karlovy Vary in Czech Republic, or like in France, there was a very popular place where all the, in 19th century, most of medical doctors, they suggested their patient to go through this treatment, just consuming, this mineral water. And some other places in south part of Russia, it's very popular, I know. It's very different location. But in order to create this type of water, it has to be a specific geomagnetic field, pressure, underground pressure, and mineral content for this, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we have kind of like, as I said, hypothesis actually how the water can help people suffering from radiation disease. But firstly, I forgot to tell you that, and actually, we conducted a research regarding the effect of MRET water on the normal astrocyte cells. It's a human brain cells pre-exposed to high-level radiation. We conducted this test at Molecular Diagnostic Laboratory in San Diego. So, in other words, the natural, healthy astrocyte cells, human samples of the human brain cells, they were exposed to ionizing radiation of 2 gray level and 8 gray level. Let me explain you. 2 gray level means it's a level of radiation which is usually used for all the irradiation treatment for oncology patients all over the globe. It's a level 2 gray level, okay? 8 gray level, based on the scientific research conducted for the last probably 50 years, 8 gray level is considered to be a lethal level for human subject. If the human subject was exposed to the radiation of 8 gray level, it means that sooner or later we have a lethal result. In other words, it's a death. Okay, so for this reason we conducted this test for 2 samples of the human brain cells, astrocyte cells, pre-exposed to 2 gray level and 8 gray level. Then the cells were introduced to the cell media, because cells can live only in the media. And we know that the cell media is 90% water. So in control, there was no exposure to MRET treatment. In the experimental samples of the cells, it's obviously were cell media was exposed to MRET treatment, and then the cells were incubated in the refrigerator for 24 hours and 74 hours. And then the test cells were conducted so-called MTT cells. So in other words, it just observed the cell's activity, life activity of the cells. So interesting was that for the cells with level 2 gray, there was no significant difference between control cells and the cells treated with MRET. But for the samples of the cells pre-exposed to 8 gray lethal level for the cells, there was interesting result. So control cells compared with the life activity of the cells incubated with the MRET treated media, there was life activity of the MRET treated cells was 25 to 35% higher. So in other words, the cells had a chance to survive by 35% compared with cells, control cells, pre-exposed to 8 gray level, lethal level. Very interesting. You know, we are talking about human brain cells, by the way. Okay, in other words, what's going to happen when the human body is exposed to a high radiation level? I'm talking about the ionizing radiation. It's obviously leads to the situation because, you know, the main effect is on the DNA structure of the cells, normal cells. Because, you know, the DNA structure has so-called 2 strings. You know, it goes like a spiral, 2-string spiral. In other words, it's based on the 2 strings. And in the nature, it's obviously happened the situation when, you know, you can develop so-called a cancer situation when one string is broken. But because another string has a normal, it's still in the normal, position. So in the nature, there is a way to repair the cell, to repair DNA. It's a natural mechanism, built-in natural mechanism, because we have a normal platform for another string. So in the nature, it's a natural built mechanism in the cells that cells can repair this DNA damage. Another situation we have when there is breakage of the 2 strings. There is no way that cells can create a repairment. Why it happened? Because the DNA is this strings is made of the so-called nucleotide, which is actually the protein. And nucleotide is a solid material. It's a protein, but it's solid material. And each nucleotide has its electrical charge. And it's very difficult, almost impossible, to change electrical charge of solid material. Okay? But another situation when you expose the solid material into water environment. Because we have ability to change electrodynamic characteristic of water. Remember, I explained that we found that when the water is treated with MRET device, we found it's actually modified electrodynamic characteristic of water, dielectrical property and electrical conductivity. All right, so when we have a situation with damage of two strings of DNA, we have to change a water environment around the DNA structure, because water is actually a kind of has a role of insulation for the DNA structure. It's protect DNA structure from different effect, environmental negative effect like radiation, chemicals, etc., etc. And if we manage to replace a water environment inside the cells with the water with different modified electrodynamic characteristic, we can change a result, because see, the nucleotide inside the DNA structure strings, they stick together with the help of so-called van der Waals forces, van der Waals interaction. It's forces which act on the atomic level. And in order for us to repair these two strings, we have to normalize van der Waals forces. In other words, in this case, they can attract to each other, these two, in this end, release and remove this gap between the nucleotides. So we can do only if we change electrodynamic characteristic of water. If we reduce dielectrical property and electrical conductivity, we can restore a dynamic balance between van der Waals forces of the nucleotide. And bingo, they stick together. Obviously, it's a hypothesis, but because we have a normalizing effect of MRET water, first of all, on the patient suffering from radiation, we already have these medical records. We know it works. And also, we found through our research regarding the effect of MRET water on cancer cells and on the in animal models, on the animals suffering from different form of cancer. We know that it works, it helps, it restores life activity of animals, it reduces the counting of the cancer cells, and etc., etc. So, in other words, MRET treated water and the water from specific springs, they have this specific effect on repairing of DNA structure, damaged DNA structure. If they can repair damaged DNA structure, they can restore normal function of the cells, and they can create this profound rehabilitation effect for the patient suffering from the radiation disease. Because most of the injuries created by the radiation is breakage of DNA structure in the brain and in the body in general. So that's one of the potential explanation, hypothetical explanation, why this type of water can help people suffering from radiation. So in other words, it's a natural protection against different form of harmful environmental effect on the human body. Yeah, it's definitely can seriously help people if they are unfortunately, got this radiation problem, or if they are working in the area with high radiation risk. For example, it's very good for people to consume an MRET treated water for people who works with atomic power plant, for example. Yeah, because it's obviously a risky environment anyway, right? So, yeah. And Also for not only ionizing effect, what we found actually, it's also helpful for people suffering from so-called electric sensitivity problem. It's already a problem which kind of like we're facing right now for a lot of people suffering in the urban environment when they are consistently exposed to electromagnetic radiation, non-ionizing electromagnetic radiation, so-called, in other words, microwave radiation. It's exposure to Wi-Fi radiation, mobile phone radiation, computers, etc., etc. So this is another not very healthy environment we are facing right now. And based on what I just recently explained on the mechanism how potentially MRET water can help body to build natural immunity to resist these unwanted harmful effects of electromagnetic radiation as well. Yeah, our research data actually indicates that after MRET treatment, water can keep MRET property for quite long period of time. For example, when we conducted research regarding the effect on the animals with different form of cancer, one of the sample of water was actually treated with MRET and then kept in refrigerator for 45 days, quite long period of time. And after this type of water, after storage in the refrigerator for 45 days, it was also introduced to a control group of animals, and we found approximately same effect on the animals. So it's, in other words, also reduce the cancer cells activity in animals, even after storage for 45 days. And another experiment regarding the effect on viscosity and electrodynamic characteristic of water also proved that after MRET treatment, water can keep this property for quite long period of time. Yes, the experiment was conducted for water sample, MRET water sample, which was heated up to 72 degrees by Celsius. And there was also found presence of MRET properties in this water. Obviously, if you heat water up to 100 degrees by Celsius and keep this temperature for a long period of time, obviously it will destroy specific molecular structure. There is no way. But for the short period of time, like 5-10 minutes, yeah, there is still some MRET effect presence in the water. Yes, we are manufacturing this type of MRET treatment, water treatment device in different locations in United States, in Singapore, Malaysia, and obviously we have different distributors company which we are working for almost already 10 years with different companies, and yeah, we have very good results. We have a number of anecdotal cases, especially in this area, like South Pacific area, like Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Japan, Korea. So there is a very interesting result. Very interesting results specifically for people suffering from a serious skin problem like psoriasis and eczema. So what anecdotal cases actually indicated that the patient suffering from this type of skin disease for many years after consuming of MRET water for within almost 1 or 2 months, they have a very pretty good result. Release from this problem within probably 30 to 45 days after consumption of MRET water. And we have all these records, we have all these photographs and records and regarding these anecdotal cases. And besides, obviously, we had a laboratory test for so-called for the callus tissue. Callus tissue is psoriasis cells of botanical origin, in other words, plant cells. And we have a very good, interesting confirmation and results regarding the effect of MRET water on suppression of callus tissue. So in other words, when the callus tissue cells, botanical cells, are introduced to MRET treated water environment, they are vanished, they are killed. And there is a quite close resemblance between the skin cells of psoriasis psoriasis skin cells of human lion and the callus tissue of botanical origin, quite close resemblance. So for this reason, we found a number of anecdotal cases of people consuming MRET and get clean from the psoriasis and eczema problem.